In this bowl are the top cold call questions my girlfriend Amanda sourced on Reddit, and I'm answering them. The best cold call advice you've ever heard. Gosh, there's been so many great pieces of advice I've learned and received over the last 8 years in sales making cold calls. But the best piece of advice has to be expect every call you make to get answered. And the reason why that's the best piece of advice, when we're cold calling, when we're in sales, there's so many times, guys, in the past, I'm looking in my CRM, I'm calling Chris. I look at my activity. I've called Chris 8 times over the last 90 days, and all 8 of those previous times have went to voicemail. It would be logical of me to think this call I'm making right now is also going to go to voicemail. Now, if Chris picks up, I'm not prepared, I'm caught off guard, I'm surprised, and that's going to impact my tonality, my pacing is not going to go all that well. Expect every single call you make to get answered. I don't care if they didn't answer the previous 8 or 9 or 10, 20. I do not care. That person might pick up, and you need to be prepared to have that conversation when they do. Ooh, this is a good one. What's the worst cold call you've ever done? I've done so many of these, guys. The worst cold call I've ever done is when the prospect picks up and I don't even try. I just hang up. All I was doing with that call was to log an activity in Salesforce. I wasn't ready to have a conversation. It's pretty pathetic. I've done this so many times in my career. Chris picks up, I hang up, Chris picks up. I say, sorry, I called the wrong number, because I don't want to have that conversation, because I don't want to get rejected. I don't want to deliver my opener. I don't know how to handle objections. I'm not prepared to have the conversation. I've done that so many times in my career. Not trying is way worse than trying and failing. Whew, that's a good one. Which industry has the best cold call pickup rates? Now, I don't have hard stats or numbers on this, but thinking of this logically, the best cold call pickup rates I would say are probably when you're calling people that work in sales. You're selling to sales managers, sales leaders, CROs. We tend to pick up the phone a lot. Now, again, I don't have hard stats or numbers on that, but I would say they have the best cold call pickup rates. On the flip side of that coin, I know this for a fact, the folks that do not pick up the phone, the folks that are not receptive to cold calls and prospecting outreach from salespeople, CISOs, IT, anyone working in a technical role, they are so against salespeople, it's not even funny, and that's who I cold call on a daily basis. Okay, why do normal people hate the idea of cold calling so much? Because we're normal. Cold calling is awful. It's not a fun activity to do. Normal people do not like doing it. If you like doing cold calls, if that's something you really like to do, you look forward to doing it on a daily basis, you might be on your way to becoming the next serial killer we see on a Netflix documentary. I'm normal! Normal people do not like making cold calls. Easy question to answer. We don't like getting rejected. No one does. You keep cold calling people that obviously are ghosting you. I do not, because if I know they're ghosting me, they probably know my phone number, and they're probably not going to pick up that call because they don't want to talk to me. So why would I waste my time calling them? For me, ghosting is I'm in a conversation with them and they went dark. So I've met with them a couple times, or once they went dark. Instead of cold calling, I would send over a simple email that says, it's just one line, it seems like you've given up on this project. And that would be it. And the reason why that line works, it's worked for me so much in the past, psychology, people don't like giving up on things. So they tend to respond to that email. But no, I'm not going to continue to cold call somebody who's ghosting me. I'll send them that simple email, one line. That's it. No need to cold call people who are ghosting me. What is your number one cold calling tip or hack that you have found works? I would say the 3-second rule. So obviously when we're making cold calls, getting rejected, getting hung up on is inevitable. And what I've found works when you have a bad cold call, you just got cursed at, hung up on, is you count to 3. After that call ends, you count to 3, 1, 2, 3, and you pick the phone up and make the next call. The more time you let in between that bad call and your next call, this phone is going to look like a 150-pound weight, and it's going to be very difficult to pick this up. 1, 2, 3, on to the next call. That really, really works. It's worked for me over the last 8 years. I know it's going to work for you guys too. That is my best cold calling hack. Should I stick to sales if I hate cold calling? Let's not get it twisted, guys. I hate cold calling. I do not like cold calling. I hate it. And I know you might be thinking, well, you produce a lot of content around it. I produce a lot of content around it because today in 2024, we have to do it. Now, that might be a thing of the past. I think it will be 5, 7 years from now. I don't think cold calling is going to be all that effective, given that millennials and Gen Zers, we're not receptive to cold calls or picking the phone up to make cold calls. So I think cold calling will be dead. But I hate cold calling. But I still do it because I have to do it to be successful. Now, if you hate cold calling so much to the point where you refuse to do it, I still think you could have a career in sales. There's certain sales jobs out there that aren't looking for hunters. They're simply looking for closers. But the best salespeople I know are not afraid to prospect. They're not afraid to pick the phone up and make cold calls because they know they have to do it, even though they hate it, to be successful. Hopefully that answers your question. Making 50 to 100 cold calls a day, is that effective? I think it's effective. If you are manually calling 50 to 100 people a day, I think that could be a bit time consuming. If your company isn't investing in any sort of sales tools out there that make automated dials, I would ask them to, because it's 2024 and that's really the only way to make cold calls. If you're making automated dials, you can make 5, 6, maybe 1,000 cold calls a day. It's calling for you and you can bang those out in a couple hours. 1 to 2 hours, you can make 1,000 phone calls. These tools are crazy. But I do think, to again answer the question, making 100 or 50 to 100 cold calls a day, I do think that is effective and doable if you have the right tool stack in place. What screams, I'm selling you something when you're doing cold calls? I would say opening the cold call with the phrase, how are you? Nothing screams, I'm trying to sell you something more than that disingenuous question when you open a cold call. Hey Chris, it's Matt with IBM. How are you today? I know Chris knows that I don't care how he's doing. It's disingenuous. Chris knows, this is another salesperson cold calling me, trying to sell me something I have no need for whatsoever at all. So I would say that screams, I'm trying to sell you something. That phrase right there. Does cold calling make you a more confident person? Absolutely. Absolutely. You and me, we're doing something that 99.99% of people won't do, refuse to do, can't do because they're scared and nervous to do it. So absolutely, guys, if you were to meet me 8 years ago before I got into sales, I was not a confident person whatsoever. And I would say today I'm very confident. My girlfriend says I'm overly confident, but absolutely, it's going to help you become a more confident person in both your professional life and your personal life. Will probably help with approaching girls too if you're single. It helped me. I was never successful. What is your opening line for a cold call? My go-to opening line is, let's say Chris picks up the phone. Chris, thanks for taking the call. Listen, Chris, you're probably going to hate me for this. This is actually a cold call. Do you want to hang up or can I steal a minute to tell you why I called? I've used that cold call opening line over the last, 3-4 years. 80% of the time, the prospect gives me permission to proceed with the pitch. That's my go-to. You guys know if you've been a subscriber for a long time on this channel, I'm a huge fan of a permission-based opener. I think that's the only way, the best way to open a cold call when delivered correctly. 80% of the time, you're going to get buy-in to continue with the pitch. Now, if you're looking for lots of other cold call openers that work, cold call scripts that work, you can gain access to my cold call guide in the description of this video. It's super affordable. If you guys download my free SDR sales guide, you get 20% off the cold call guide. Very affordable. Would you avoid cold calling if you could? 100%. If I could avoid cold calling, I would never do it again. But where we're at today, I can't avoid it. I have to do it to build pipeline. I have to do it to set meetings, to make money, to hit my quota. But if I could avoid it, 100%, guys, I would not be doing this. I would not be picking this thing up, calling random people that probably do not want to hear from me. No chance. If I could avoid it, I would. And if sellers tell you they want it, they're BSing you. They're lying. This is kind of a stupid one. Does anybody enjoy cold calling? Again, I don't. Maybe there's a couple people out there that are normal, but I think if you actually enjoy cold calling, serial killer. Last one. How to stay in a positive state cold calling all day. Oof. So a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I had a job where that's all I did. I cold called all day long. I made 150 to 250 cold calls every single day, manual cold calls. I didn't have a dialer, automated dials. And the job drained me, guys. Absolutely drained me. I got depressed. I had to start see a therapist to get back to where I was, a happy, positive person, because my job just completely burnt me out. All I did was sit in a phone booth and make 150 to 200 cold calls every single day. So for me to answer this question, I can't. If all you're doing is making cold calls, that's it. You're not doing anything else. You're not being strategic. You're not sending cold emails. You're not social selling. And I was doing that stuff too, guys, but really all I was doing, I was cold calling all day long. It is soul crushing. So for me, I could not stay positive. So I can't really answer this question. A couple strategies I would use maybe that'll help is figure out how much money you're making per dial. So do the math, figure out how many dials it takes to book a meeting, how much money you're getting per meeting, and then you'll figure out how much money you're making per dial. That can help you stay in a positive state. Time blocking can help you stay in a positive state. I only think you should make cold calls and cold call time blocks. Like in this hour, I'm making as many cold calls as I can, then I'm taking a break. But again, for me, guys, completely depressed, had to start start seeing a therapist. I was in a really bad spot mentally because all I did all day long was cold calling, and I would not wish any job like that on anybody. If you're cold calling all day long and you have strategies to stay in a positive attitude, let us know in the comment section below. Guys, if you want me to do more videos like this, I like this content because it's not scripted. It's just me kind of going off the top of my head. Let me know in the comment section below. Like this video, and would you be opposed to subscribing? Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.